Hello, and welcome to the Autodesk Buzzsaw training series for Marriott Buzzsaw application. My name is Kyle Robb. I'm your Buzzsaw site administrator at Marriott, and I'll be walking you through these training sessions. In today's session, we'll cover the design standards navigation. In the previous session, we covered access-related questions as well as logging into the site, as well as just a brief introduction of the difference between the web-based version and the thick client application. Right now we're looking at the web-based version, but for this purpose today we're going to focus on the thick client application. Again, all the content in them is the same. It's just a matter of the navigation is a little bit easier in the thick client application, even though the navigation is really the same for both. And I'll try to flip back to the web browser version whenever possible to give you an example of what I'm doing in the thick client. So this is the thick client. We know by the orange folders here. I'm already logged in, and I've created a test login where the access is going to be similar to that of what most users would have, pretty typical to what they may have. So on this login page, we have our folders and HTML page, which we try to include commonly accessed links, as well as contact information. So I can get to the design standards two ways. I can either click on the link here below design standards, click here to access design standards, or I could select design standards from the folder structure, and then it would tell me how to access something. So I just selected design standards in the folder structure, and I'm seeing here in the how-to that I should be able to pick a brand. But in order to do that, I need to expand the folder by hitting the plus sign. Now I'll pause here and go back to the web version. The way you expand folders in the web version is you hit the little drop-down arrow. So design standards, it loads, and I have all the brands and their design standards that I have access to. Let me click on Courtyard. And here's the HTML page with commonly accessed links. Let me go back to the thick client. So Courtyard, I'll select that. Now let me just jump back there for a second. So it was telling me to pick my folder and then navigate to the files. Something to note here when we are navigating to those files is they're either going to be current or they're going to be published, which is essentially past or archived historical standards. And so we'll get into those a bit more as we get further along in this session. Go back to Courtyard. So all these commonly accessed links. So it either is a standard, it's a specification, maybe it's a drawing or a renovation related piece of information, or even brand specific information. So let's go to an example of one of these documents. So the Interior Design Specification Manual is a commonly accessed document. Let me click on that. So what happened was I clicked on that link and I was at the Courtyard US and Canada folder, and it expanded down to where I am now that I'm looking at the Spec Manual, the Interior Design Spec Manual. So here's the folder for it, and then here are all our different versions that are currently available for the Interior Design Spec Manual. We have sample boards, the different generations, and then even a link to those published or retired decor specification manuals. So just to go back here for a second, let me minimize this, and minimize this. So if I wanted to, instead of using this link, if I wanted to manually navigate there, so that, let's try to find the Interior Design Spec Manual again. So Courtyard US and Canada, and select current. So okay, order CD, let me put it by name. Standards and guidelines, bulletins. Let me go to standards and guidelines. So what I just did there is you can either click over here where you'd see your folder, or you can hit the plus sign. So if I was on current, and I could double click here, or I could hit the plus sign, then select standards and guidelines, and whatever's the next level down in the folder structure shows on the right side. So let me jump to the web browser version to give you an example of that. So Courtyard US and Canada, I'll arrow down current, I'll arrow down standards and guidelines, but select standards and guidelines. So I'm in standards and guidelines, and then these three options are showing on the right. And if at any point with the web-based version I want to jump back to a point, I can just click on it in this little hyperlinked bar here. So if I want to go all the way to the home page, I'd select Marriott. And it would take me to the 4 folders that I originally saw when I logged in. One thing to note here with the web version is the HTML page only shows the first time that you are on a particular point, and then it cannot load again. Whereas with the browser-based version, so if I want to go to my home page, the HTML page will always be there at a specific point. It's just the way where we're able to code it and what Autodesk allows in the way of coding into this tool. So that said, let me go back to those standards and guidelines in Courtyard. So now I'm under current standards and guidelines, and then I see 3 folders. Let me also expand it over here. So it's either going to be a standard, a drawing, or a specification. Those are the 3 categories under all of our standards that things are really going to fall under. So in this case, we know it's an interior design guideline specification manual, so it's probably going to fall under specifications. So let me select that and just see what I have here. Cover, table of contents, procurement, there it is. Interior design specification manual. So I'll double click over here, and these are all the different options. Now, one benefit to housing all this information online versus hard copies is we try to build some things into the documents that make them beneficial to use. So let's take a look at one of these more recent. We'll do Twilight. You can right click it, pardon me. You can either double click it, which is what I did, and it'll begin to download. Let me take you back. Or you can right click it and choose to download, so you could download it to your desktop so that you wouldn't need an internet access to access Buzzsaw. So you can download the document, have it somewhere on your computer so you can just access it whenever. Or you can choose to view it in the window. So that is the Buzzsaw tool that it has built in. And what's also nice, as you look over here, there's general information about it, discussions, and different versions. So if, let's say, a document's been updated 20 times, you're going to have those version numbers over here. So let's just view it in the window to show you that functionality of this tool. Now, the Spec Manual tends to be one of our bigger documents, so it takes probably the longest to download of some of these documents. But that's also another reason that we recommend not necessarily downloading it and much less printing it out. So here we have the Interior Design Specification Manual. And so I chose View in Window, so it created a little separate window that still has the Buzzsaw icon here for us to view it. So if we want to look for something, you scroll down to the table of contents, which is the first thing you come across. And then it's broken out by the different types of space. So you got public space. Let's say I want to find something in the guest rooms. Scrolling down, okay, guest room. So I see it's on page 441. And if I'm savvy enough to know that I can bring up my Adobe options, I click on the Adobe toolbar, and I can put in 441 here. Or, just to make it wholly easier for hopefully everyone, you can click on guest room or page 441 to take you right to it. And then as I scroll through guest room, we get to the first item and its specifications. So here we have a typical specification page where it will have in the top right the reference designator, the area the item's being used in, the category, and the Marriott ID number. The specifications for the item on the left side, and then just under on the top right where we have the Marriott designator and ID information, we'll have the top vendor for this product. How a vendor gets on this sheet is they have to work with us and prove to us that their item meets our specifications. So it goes through a pretty rigorous process where their product will get reviewed. They invest the time and the money with us to make sure that we review it and it gets up to our level of specifications. And then usually we get some sort of a deal with them in terms of procurement. We have a deal to get a better cost for the price for the product. And then below that you have a picture of the product, and then if the product was used in other rooms, so we see in the bottom right of this specification page, you see all the rooms where it's used. So we see it's in the public space as this, and it's in the meeting room as this. So in this case, we're in a public space version of it, but see how the designators are different. So if you wanted to go to the other room where this item is used, these are also hyperlinked. So you click and it takes me to the other specification, so MR510. And then I scroll to the bottom here. Let me go back to BDR 500 OPT. So that's another way that we try to build in a benefit to using this spec document electronically. Let me go back to the table of contents at the top here. And let's say I want to find an item using the item index. So again, it's on page 516. I'll click item index, it takes me there. And this is split up by the space that the item is used in. So, okay, artifact package. Alright, now let's find something in the public space. Let's do the boardroom. So let's take a look at this ceiling fixture. And again, we have these hyperlinks built in. So it took me right to that ceiling fixture. Got the designator. See, very typical layout of these spec documents. The picture of the item, and then all the rooms where it's used. So just a good example here of some of the benefits of using and viewing these documents electronically. So let me minimize this. So again, we have the brand, and then you'll have current and published, and then you'll have your standards and guidelines, also with the bulletins and the hard copy option. And then below those standards and guidelines, you have the three categories of a standard drawing or spec. And just to show you, the published is the same way. Let me open this up, and let's say got 2011 standards and guidelines, standards, drawings, and specs. And just to show you that it is the same in the web version, we'll jump over there. So I've got published. Second to open. Scroll down. And then 2011 Q2 standards and guidelines. And you got your standards, drawings, and specs. And again, if you have any questions about where to find a specific piece of information, you can always start by contacting us at architectureandconstruction@marriott.com, or you can come to me and I can help direct you. My name's Kyle Robb again, and my email address is kyle.robb@marriott.com. You can find that in the description to this video at the bottom. And that concludes our session today on basic design standards navigation. Thank you for your time, and we'll hope to see you again next time.